Hi, and welcome everyone. I'm Kristine Fisher, your host of this edition of Ann ARTWaves. This program is coming to you by way of 1623 Studios, located in historic Gloucester on beautiful Cape Ann. We have taken the month of August off as a hiatus, so it's great to be back. This week, I have the pleasure to interview world traveler, surfer, waterman, historian, champion of kids leadership, and dare I say, uber talented photographer, Jeff Crawford. Jeff has current work in the Bass Rocks art exhibition, Art on the Rocks, here in Gloucester. Both Jeff and his better half, Joanne, run Gloucester Museum School Adventure Camp for kids and do a phenomenal job with kids and their families. Welcome, Jeff. It's great to see you. Great to have you.
Hey, thanks for the good intro. That was nice.
Oh, good. I love it. Good. I always think it's helpful when we're interviewing artists to talk about those early beginnings. Let's get a snapshot of how you got hooked.
Well, I started surfing back in the 60s, and a lot of surfers eventually want to photograph what they're doing. And so I kind of got in that direction. I started with Super 8 cameras, shooting video. Well, it's not video, it's film back then.
Yep.
And then eventually into a still camera. And, you know, one of the problems was that when the waves are good, you wanted to be surfing. And you start to find that you really don't have the time to surf and photograph, but we would try. And one of our earliest experiences was a trip very early in 1971 to Nova Scotia. And we shot video in Nova Scotia. Again, I say video, I meant film, which is Super 8.
Yep.
And we possibly have some of the very first surfing film from Nova Scotia. And it was, and I just kept at it through the years. And so a lot of everything I do is right around the ocean, and it has something to do with surfing or waves or how the ocean works.
Well, I would love to see some of your early videos sometime. That would be really a treat, especially since, you know, you're really one of the early adopters way back in the 70s. Let's move on and talk about your inspirations. You have so many, so it's probably be hard for you to narrow it down, but let's give it a try.
Well, you know, it's kind of odd. In the beginning would be Surfer Magazine and everybody that was involved with Surfer Magazine. So we would see the names of photographers, and every surfer back then, we did not have any modern technology. So, you know, anything. We could tell by a picture where that wave was, because we studied every person. And then later on, I actually became friends with one of those photographers, Bernie Baker, from Hawaii. And since then, I've actually done work for him and with him in photography and Photoshop. And one of his and my good friends was a very good inspiration. Plus all the classic people, the Ansel Adams and so forth, you know.
Well, Bernie was quite an icon, really.
Oh, he is. He is, yes.
Well, talk to us about some of your other inspirations, because you and Joanne, your better half, you do so much traveling, and you're also a big history buff. So just kind of highlight a few of those.
Well, the history, I'm very interested in history, but I'm also equally interested on just how people live. And when we did some extensive travel around the world, going to Asia, a lot of Hawaii, of course. And I always tried to capture whatever it is that this is how they live, their farms or their, you know, obviously interested in boats of all types. We did a lot of, because of surfing, did a lot of travel near the ocean. But not always. We'd spent a fair amount of time up in northern Thailand, northern Nepal, actually. And, you know, it just, I look back at the pictures and I realize that I just took pictures of people's everyday life and tried to capture that. Things that I found very different than the way we lived. I tried to, capture the, the boats and the markets, that type of thing.
Well, you're a cultural photographer, really.
Yeah, and and then to learn the history of those places, I was
Yeah.
always interested. Yeah.
Well, Jeff, let's talk a bit about your process. I know that you really like to honor with your tools the integrity, the authenticity of the photographs that you take. Walk us through, maybe share with us a favorite step or a favorite tool.
Well, a lot of every photographer is different, and their approach. I'm what you would call a prime lens photographer, and I have a strange addiction to wanting to a lot of my photographs to be as sharp as I possibly can. Sometimes that's near impossible. If you're shooting waves in a gray, dismal storm, you don't have enough light, and so sometimes you move over to another process. But normally I like to be as sharp, so I go prime lenses, the best, as they say, glass that you can afford. Not that I can. Some of these people have insane lenses. But then I shoot in RAW. I don't like to use JPEG because I don't like to let the camera decide how the scene looks to me.
Yeah.
I prefer to shoot RAW, bring it into Photoshop, make adjustments that RAW takes everything in, and usually the picture doesn't look that good, doesn't look as good as what you saw. So you make some adjustments. Every digital camera needs to be slightly sharpened, so I do that. And generally that's what I end up with. I look for the real picture. I don't go and add fake skies and fake colors unless I'm just messing around.
Right.
I have done some t-shirts for people in Hawaii that they wanted them really wild. I can do that with Photoshop, but my photographs that I have, I go for what is actually there. And yeah.
Well, every photographer has a different style and a different approach. And I honor what you've just said. I think you've also shared some great tips as well. Let's talk about how you're using this time. This has been such a forced pause, and I'd love to know how you creatively have been carrying on with your art.
Well, because of COVID, things are quite different. I'm not traveling right now. I mean, I can't even get to Maine. But believe it or not, I just did a series of masks for the Gloucester Museum School, and using my photographs and my abilities with Photoshop, I laid out some masks, very international. We sent them to England to be printed, and then that material was sent to Pittsburgh, where our friend from Nepal is stuck, and he's making these masks, and they came out quite good. And he just sent me another order to do some Photoshop work with his designs. So that's it seems strange, but I'm kind of making masks right now.
Well, that's great. You also shared when we had talked prior about this wonderful discovery that you made of Harriet Meyer's work.
Well, I made a discovery. Harriet Meyer, she was Annie Hyatt Hutchinson's sister, and every bit as skilled at sculpting. And I found a stack of glass plates of her sculptures, and I scanned them, which I do a lot of scanning.
Yes, right.
Excuse me, that's my phone. And I didn't know what was there, and to me, I'm not a sculptor, but I look at them and I think they're quite well done. and I haven't got them, you might say, out into the open yet. I still have them in my digital files.
I think that's
So
a
that's something
wonderful
I'd like to do.
story. Yeah. Oh, I'd
A-
love to see them.
And I do actually do a lot of black and white scanning, correcting old photographs. Again, back to the old photographs, it's got some history to it.
Hmm.
And so I love looking at really old photographs, and I pick apart, and I'm amazed sometimes at what we see from the past.
Hmm.
It's fun.
I loved the story that you shared with me earlier, Jeff, about the cobblestones. I think that is just it's a lovely nuance. Would you share that with all of us?
We talk with cobblestones in Naples or in Italy.
I don't know
In
exactly
Italy.
where you were, but you were really talking about the richness of the history and how.
Well, I'm intrigued, obviously, by history, but also how something as simple as cobblestones are worn down from 2,000 years of people walking over them, and it softens them down. And then I love the way the light hits them, and I try to capture that that use of something that's been walked over, and I try to imagine what kind of traffic and how long that traffic has gone over. Something as simple as the cobblestones.
Hmm.
And I found some beautiful ones in Italy, because Italy is culturally is very old,
Hmm.
and that those things intrigue me. I see art in the simple things from a street, or one of the things I've moving into. I haven't put them on my website yet. Is I call them house parts,
Yeah.
and house parts being an interesting ornament that's put on a house that might be 100, 200 years old,
Hmm.
with the paint and the cracks and the so forth. But it's just, those are side projects that I'm constantly working on.
Hmm.
I do get away from the water once in a while. Yes.
There you go. There you go. So, Jeff, talk to us a little bit about your website. I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed your website. Your work is so diverse, and I loved how simply you had it organized and presented.
Well, the website really is there as a kind of a portfolio.
Hmm.
And I'm constantly adding to it as I get things digitized. A lot of old slides, and I've been digitizing a lot of my old work.
Hmm.
I've got a lot more to go,
Hmm.
and then I get them up onto the website, and that's really it. It's not there for necessarily to be selling prints or anything, but I want to show what I have done and what I'm working on now.
Yeah, well, it's great.
Yeah,
I
thanks.
thought it was very engaging. So let's talk a little bit about your show at Best Rocks. You've got some beautiful work
Well, thank
in
you.
that show, and I know that today during our interview, you wanted to also talk to a couple of pieces that illustrate, I think, the diversity and range of your work.
Well, the show is great. This is the third year I've actually been accepted into the show,
Hmm.
and I do appreciate that. I think it's a very nice show. The pieces are up for one whole year,
Hmm.
so that whoever is in there gets to go around and see things.
Hmm.
Um, Two of my pieces in the first year you've put up. That's Spindrift,
Hmm.
which is actually, it's a local wave that I got a beautiful picture of just as the sky opened up for 15 minutes and gave me some beautiful light.
Cool.
Another one is um, the dance on Puffer's Pond. It's some water lilies that are in the pond in Maine, and the lighting was in such a way that I've gotten a ton of awesome pictures, and that's another thing that I like is nature
Hmm.
again in water. And the other one is a favorite um, subject of mine. It's on my website, and there's a whole section just dedicated to one particular apple tree.
Hmm.
And I love that apple tree, and I take pictures of that in every season.
Hmm.
And this happened to be a rare time when the tide was so high that it closed down the road.
Mhm.
And I caught some pictures of it, decided that it would be very nice in black and white. So I printed it, and that is in the show right now.
Oh, beautiful. I love that apple tree. I know which apple tree that is.
You do. And it has fantastic apples too.
Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about what's next for you. What's on your docket?
Well, I am working on a book right now. I also can do book layout work.
Yeah.
I work with a program called InDesign. And I have a collection from my grandfather in an area of Maine about 1910.
Mhm.
And they're beautiful black and white photographs of people and places. And I would like to put these together in a very nice photograph book. For a while, my grandfather was a professional photographer creating what's called real picture postcards.
Mhm.
And which is what I would call today's Instagram.
Mhm.
And you would make these photographs, and then you could print them up, and people would put them on a postcard, and there would be a postcard, and then they would send them out to all their family or friends or whatever. And so that's a project that I've been working on for a while, and I always have certain photographs in my mind that I'm waiting for the exact right lighting and time to get to.
Mhm.
And so that's, I've got a series of, a mental list of things that if I have the time and I can get to them,
Mhm.
I will go shoot them.
I love it. That's great. That's great. Good
Yeah.
incentive. Good incentive. Well, Jeff, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks so much for your time today and sharing with
Well,
us your stories and background. I love it.
I really appreciate that you see that, and it's fun. Thank
Good.
you.
Good, good, good. Well, folks, we've been talking to Jeff Crawford this afternoon, and I want to thank you, Jeff, and I also want to share with all of our listeners that this recording can be seen on Channel 12 as well as YouTube and posted on Facebook. And lastly, I want to say that Jackie Ganem DeFalco will be hosting next week. We're back in business. Thanks so much. Great to see everyone. Thanks for listening.